As I said in the first video, some scientists say that viruses are life, and others say that viruses is some kind of life, proto-life, replicators, and other definitions. Well, who studies the viruses are biologists, and as biologists are the professionals that study life, despite of this discussion, it's fair I talk about them, not because I consider them life, but because it is part of biological field. The word virus comes from Latin and means poison. The first time that the word is used as an agent that causes infectious disease was in 1728. In 1887, the Russian Dmitry Yosifovich Ivanovsky was sent to Ukraine and Bessarabia to investigate some kind of disease that was causing great damage into the tobacco plants. 3 years later, he was sent to Crimea to investigate the same problem. What he discovered is that disease was caused by extremely minuscule infectious agent that was not a bacterium, because they could permeate the Chamberlain filters. He described your discovery in an article in 1892. So, in 1898, the Dutch Martinus Willem Beijerinck, with a similar experiment, demonstrated that the tobacco mosaic disease was caused by an organism smaller than a bacterium, calling it virus. He is considered one of the founders of the virology. The viruses have some life properties that put them in the edge of life, and like another ones, what makes some scientists not consider viruses a form of life. I will avoid this discussion here, but I will let some questions along the video to reflection. Viruses have genes. Sometimes are DNA, but most of them are RNA. The genome can be circular, named polyomaviruses, or linear, named adenoviruses. Viruses evolve by natural selection. Here, we see the influenza virus evolution. Viruses do not have a cellular structure, which is considered the basic structure of life. Parenthesis 1. The cellular definition and the statement that cell is the basic structure of life is an arbitrary definition made by human beings. Viruses have no metabolism, so need to acquire the products to maintain your system working from the living organism. Parenthesis 2. In fact, all organisms needs to acquire energy outside of its body. The viruses just cannot build what they need, take it really from another organism, stolen it. They don't waste the energy building what they need, so maybe they did it, but they evolved to take it from another organism. Think about it. Viruses cannot reproduce it itself naturally, outside a root cell. That is, they use the reproductive mechanism from other organisms. But, and now I can say a big but, species such as Rickettsia and Chlamydia are considered living organisms despite the same limitation. Parenthesis 3. Once more, it's an arbitrary statement. It's true, the viruses lack a lot of characteristics that we consider to living things. But we back to the main rule in biology. The exception is the rule. We can consider that this statement is in cellular level, because if you think the most of organisms cannot reproduce itself, but need other organisms to do it, in general a male and a female. You and I, for example, we cannot reproduce ourselves, make a copy of us. We need another organism. In my case, I am a man and I need a woman to replicate my DNA in her. In this case, I am like a virus. I put my DNA inside the other organism to reproduce it. Parenthesis 4. I'll make this video not just to show what I have been studying and learning, but how we need to do it. We not just need to learn some sentences and repeat them for all our life, but think about it. Search for how many fonts about it you can find and read all of them and think about it. And talk to people that study it. Structure of viruses. When a virus is not parasitizing a cell, it's called a virion. A virion consists for a nucleic acid, DNA or RNA, surrounded by a protein protective coat called capsid, formed by subunits named capsomeres. Viruses can have a lipid envelope derived from the host cell membrane. They present some proteins associated with nucleic acid, named nucleoproteins, which associated with viral capsid proteins is known as nucleoproteins. In general, there are 5 main morphological virus types: helical, icosahedral, prolate, envelope, complex. I know, it looks like the prolate, but the specialist says that they are different, so okay. According to ICTV, International Committee on Taxonomy of Viruses, the viruses are classified in 4 realms, 9 kingdoms, 16 phyla, 2 subphyla, 36 classes, 55 orders, 8 suborders, 168 families, 103 subfamilies, 1,421 genera, 68 subgenera, 6,589 species. It will be rare to show you the viruses according to this classification. So there's another classification named the Baltimore classification, created by David Baltimore in 1971. And according to this classification, we can classify viruses in 7 groups inside of 3 types of viruses. DNA viruses are divided in 2 groups. Group 1, double-stranded DNA viruses. Examples: adenoviruses, herpes viruses, pox viruses. Group 2, single-stranded DNA viruses. Example: parvoviruses. RNA viruses are divided in 3 groups. Group 3, double-stranded RNA viruses. Example: reoviruses. Group 4, positive sense single-stranded RNA viruses. Examples: coronaviruses, picornaviruses, togaviruses. Group 5, negative sense single-stranded RNA viruses. Examples: orthomyxoviruses, rhabdoviruses. Reverser transcribing viruses are divided in 2 groups. Group 6, single-stranded RNA viruses with a DNA intermediate. Example: retroviruses. Group 7, double-stranded DNA viruses with a RNA intermediate. Example: epadnaviruses. As my studies are about evolution and morphology, it is what I have to say about viruses. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.